Welcome to our Global Network webinar, and my name is Yu Zhang. Today, I'm really happy and exciting to have my colleagues from the SDG monitoring section in the United Nations Statistics Division. In this Global Network webinar, my colleagues will present the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2021 and will also highlight some key findings. The Sustainable Development Goal Report 2021 uses the latest available data and estimates to track the global progress of the 17 goals and reveal the devastating impacts of the crisis on the SDGs. The report also highlights areas that require our urgent and coordinated action. This report has been launched virtually by UN DESA Under-Secretary General, Mr. Liu Zhenmin, on 6 July, the first day at the high-level political forum. Without any further introduction, let me pass the floor to our moderator today, Ms. Yongyi Min, the Chief of SDG Monitoring Section in the United Nations Statistics Division. Yongyi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yuxi. Welcome, colleague, to this webinar series on the key finding from the SDG Report 2021. In this webinar, we're not going to only talk about the key finding from the report. We also focus on a little bit other output from this production of the 2020 reporting outputs. So the first presentation will be from my colleague, Heather Page, gave an overview of some of the key findings from the report, and then we will review. We have a featured data story in this report. So my colleague Hao-Yi Chen will give a presentation on the data story from this report. And we also have a SDG Progress Chart that also launched on the same day when the report launched, and you see then provide an overview of the progress chart, which is a snapshot of the progress for some of the key indicator in the traffic light format. And for the promotion of the report, we prepared an animation video. So we will also show the animation video after the presentation on the SDG Progress Chart. And also my colleague Paul Pacheco afterwards will present the online extended report. I think, as Yuxi mentioned, this report is only on the selected indicator from the global indicator framework. I just want to really take this opportunity to thank for all the colleagues from the more than 50 custodian agencies who contribute to the provide input to the report. And this is really a great collaboration cross agencies work, and also within the division, many colleagues within the division provide a lot of support to the production of the report and other outputs. In addition to the report, we have launched the global database, which currently contains I think 1.6 million data points for covering over 560 data series for 2012 of the indicator in the global indicator framework. This is also tremendous work from our colleague in the other data sections. So without further ado, maybe I will give the floor to my colleague Heather Page to give an overview of the main finding from the report. Over to you, Heather.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Give me just 1 second to share the presentation. Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues. It's very nice to be here. My name is Heather Page, and I'm a part of the SDG monitoring section. And I'd like to give a quick overview presentation on some of the key findings from the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2021. Okay. How do I move it? There we go. As many are aware, the SDGs were not on track before the pandemic, And now years or even decades of progress have been halted or reversed by COVID-19 and its impacts. And in fact, COVID-19 is set to increase the number of extreme poor in 2020 by between 119 to 124 million people, and an additional 20 to 30 million in 2021. This will cause the extreme poverty rate to rise for the first time in a generation. And based on current projections, the global poverty rate is expected to be 7% in 2030, which is around 600 million people, therefore missing the target of eradicating poverty unless immediate and substantial policy actions are taken. The crisis has posed additional threats to global food security and nutrition. Between 70 and 161 million additional people globally are likely to have experienced hunger because of the pandemic. And in 2020, 8.8% of global working hours were lost, which is equivalent to 255 million full-time jobs, about 4 times the number lost during the global financial crisis. And in addition, the pandemic has halted or reversed progress in health and has actually shortened life expectancy. About 90% of countries currently are still reporting 1 or more disruptions to essential health services. And the pandemic is projected to cause an additional 101 million children in primary and lower secondary schools to fall below the minimum reading proficiency threshold. The crisis has exposed and intensified inequalities within and among countries. Women and children face increased domestic violence, and the impacts of COVID-19 are exacerbating the vulnerability of the already 1 billion slum dwellers and those living in informal settlements. The pandemic is also intensifying children's risk of exploitation, including child marriage, as well as child labor. In 2020, the number of children engaged in child labor totaled 160 million, which is the first increase in 2 decades. And vast inequalities exist in vaccine distribution. As of 17 June 2021, around 68 vaccines were administered for every 100 people in Europe and Northern America, compared with fewer than 2 in sub-Saharan Africa. In addition, the Gini coefficient is expected to increase by 6% for emerging markets and developing countries. And despite the pandemic, the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, and the pollution crisis persist. And in fact, the climate crisis is fast approaching. Concentrations of major greenhouse gases continue to increase despite the temporary reduction in emissions in 2020. The year 2020 was actually one of the 3 warmest years on record. And more than 1/4 of species assessed by the IUCN Red List are threatened with extinction. And the sustainability of our oceans is under severe threat. Ocean acidification, eutrophication, and overfishing threaten that sustainability, where over 3 billion people rely on for their livelihoods. In addition, 1 million plastic drinking bottles are purchased every minute, and 5 trillion single-use plastic bags are thrown away each year. The means of implementation for the SDGs have also been negatively affected. With the rollout of vaccines and continued fiscal and monetary support, a global economic recovery is underway. However, for many countries, economic growth is not expected to return to pre-pandemic levels until 2022 or 2023. And global flows of foreign direct investment declined by up to 40% compared to 2019. While net official development assistance increased in 2020 to a historical high of 161 billion, this still falls well short of the target of 0.7% of donors' GNI. And despite a surge in data demand to inform pandemic-related policymaking, development support to data and statistics has not risen much. 63% of low-income and lower-middle-income countries need additional financing for data and statistics due to the pandemic. However, in the face of tremendous challenges, many governments, the private sector, academia, and communities have demonstrated quick responses, remarkable creativity, and new forms of collaboration. The crisis demonstrated the importance of social protection systems to protect people's health, jobs, and income. And as a result, between 1st February and 31 December 2020, governments worldwide announced more than 1,600 new social protection measures in response to the crisis. But almost all of these are short-term in nature, 95%. The pandemic has also sped up the digital transformation of governments and businesses, profoundly changing the ways in which we interact, learn, and work. Scientists across the globe have been working together to develop life-saving vaccines and treatment in record time. And there has been a positive trend in the development of natural instruments and strategies for the SDGs. For instance, by 2020, 83 countries in the European Union reported a total of 700 policies and implementation activities under the 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production. In addition, almost all countries have adopted legislation for the prevention of invasive alien species, which negatively affect biodiversity and cost the global economy billions of dollars annually. The COVID-19 pandemic serves as a wake-up call to further spur the decade of action and to recover better. To address deeply rooted problems in our society revealed by the pandemic, governments and the international community should make structural transformations and develop common solutions guided by the SDGs. The first step is ensuring equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. Other actions include significantly strengthening social protection systems and public services, including health systems, education, water, sanitation, and other basic services, to truly ensure that no one is left behind. In addition, increasing investment in data and in science, technology, and innovation are crucial, as well as creating fiscal space in developing countries and taking a green economy approach, as well as investing in clean energy and industry. And last but not least, we need a unified vision of coherent, coordinated, and comprehensive responses from the multilateral system. As mentioned, the report contains the latest data and information for more than 100 indicators and was prepared by UN DESA in collaboration with more than 50 international agencies. And we kindly invite you to visit the website and the report for more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Heather, I just want to mention this report will be available in all 6 official UN languages. We're working on the preparation of the other language currently, and will be available on the website soon. And so our next speaker is my colleague Howie Chen. Howie is also a coordinator for the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Survey, and Howie is the main author for the data story featured in the report, focused on investing data to save lives and build back better. So I'll give the floor to Howie. Over to you, Howie.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, the voice so low. How about the screen? Let me see.
We can see the presentation, Howie.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, Mariana. Thank you. Thank you, Yongyi, and thank you everybody for joining, and thank you all the colleagues who actually provided a lot of information to the data story I've worked on. As just following what Heather just said, there is a huge dimension, which is how do we invest in data to save lives and build back better following the COVID, and we're still in the second year of COVID. So the data story is just really a reflection of what the challenges in data, and also see how COVID has impacted, what are the lessons learned. We have great lessons and great experiences from different partners, from countries, and from partners at the international level. So this is really a mixture of that. I'm only highlighting some of the key findings, and more information will be available in the report. So what have we found under COVID? We found our countries have been responding to an unprecedented demand for data. They've been really striving to meet the needs of data from the government, as shown from a UNSD World Bank Global COVID-19 survey of national statistical offices. As of July, I believe it's around that 2020, and we have 82% of the countries that have already planned or were planning the collection of a survey to measure the impact of COVID on economic, social dimension. So this shows how countries are so agile and then respond very quickly in doing that. And just a very nice quote from our colleague from Ghana. He said, suddenly the appetite for numbers grew. Ministers now want us to have a seat at the table, not only for COVID task forces, but on development policy as a whole. So this shows how great our NSOs are grabbing the opportunity really to making data in the forefront of the policy for policy making in the country. This is from Oma, our colleague, a collaborator, the head of demographic statistics and SDG coordinator at Ghana Statistical Service. Now, we have made a lot of progress in terms of data availability and timeliness for SDG monitoring. And if we look at the number of indicators in the global SDG database, in 2016, when we started the database, there are 115 indicators available in the database. Now, 2011, we have 211. Share with you a really nice picture from Mongolia, thanks to our colleague from UNICEF who provided us with this touching story. So you see the girl in the middle of the picture, her name is Sugar Ma. She was born as a very healthy child in a very cold winter in Mongolia. And thanks to all the prenatal and postnatal care that was provided to her family and to the region because data showed that the region was very much at risk of high child infant mortality. So because of data, and then Mongolia has made a huge stride neonatal mortality with the support of data from 1990 to 2019, the neonatal mortality rate dropped from 30 per thousand to 8. Next slide. There are, despite all the progress made, there are still challenges, as you can see from this chart. This is a chart showing the proportion of countries or areas with available data by goals. And first we see that there's a lot of differences across goals, and then we also see that for 5 out of the 17 SDG goals and less than 50% the countries were able to provide internationally comparable data. COVID-19 also really highlighted or showed a lot of vulnerability of data and our data information structure. At the beginning or the middle of the pandemic, a really simple question like how many people died due to COVID, from COVID, and many countries could not answer that question. This is due to a lot of reasons, but one of them, the first one from the left, is there's really a lack of complete birth and death registration in particular in this case. As you can see that globally, we have about only 62% of the countries that have death coverage that is complete. Here we define complete as at least 75% coverage. And when we look at sub-Saharan Africa, the percentages are only 20%. And we also found that because 2020 and 2021 is really the peak year for population and housing censuses, and many countries had to postpone their censuses. The regions that has very strong data infrastructure, administrative data, for example, in Europe, they are definitely less impacted by COVID than countries in other regions. COVID has brought a lot of challenges, but it also has been driving innovation. to advance SDG monitoring and implementation, according to a very recent survey, again by UNSD and the World Bank, of national statistical offices, and we see that 58% of the NSOs have said that in the past 6 months, the readiness of ICTs technology in their office has improved significantly in the last 6 months. What we have learned from COVID, as Heather also mentioned, is the power of collaboration and partnerships. Here, I would like to share 2 stories with you. And first is from Kenya in its 2019 census. So before the census, the National Bureau of Statistics of Kenya partnered with the National Commission on Human Rights to work with communities who have historically been left behind. As a result, for the first time, intersex persons, persons with albinism, indigenous people, and stateless population were all counted in the census. This enabled the government to tailor services, but also demonstrated to members of these groups that they count. So this is an emotional set of phrase from one of the individuals from Kenya. She said, I asked the numerator to show me that the I mark for intersex. I saw it and I got emotional. This person is a parent of intersex child from Kajiado. And the person that continues, this is the beginning of a long journey and it's going in the right direction. Collaboration and partnership also happen at the international level. And following the COVID, during the COVID quickly, and there's a technical advisory group was established by WHO and UN DESA with a lot of experts, epidemiologists, biostatisticians, demographers, national statisticians, and they all work together to help WHO and member states to really obtain an accurate estimate of death. Sorry, I'm missing a phrase, attributable to COVID-19. We also see a lot of changes in how capacity building was done and how in a different way because we couldn't travel and we couldn't meet in person. There is a UNSD had to put together a global event calendar, meeting calendar that recorded events and meetings and training workshops organized by major international agencies. And we see that in 2019, there was only 5% online training, and in 2020, we have 75%. This is not surprising, but we have also found that countries are doing so much, and then as shown by a study done by the Global Network of Institutions for Statistical Training, in short GIST, they've interviewed 15 countries and they found really interesting findings for capacity building with our national statistical offices. For example, their key findings include they found that very effective trainings were actually those that priorities were set by internal needs rather than by external partners or driven by external partners. And they also found that areas in high demand was actually somehow surprising. They are in coordination of national statistical systems, user engagement, and management and financing. So they're kind of outside of the usual training we used to provide to countries. And then there were also really great examples in the SDG report we had put in the box is how countries were really being very innovative in building their own capacity. So I encourage you to go to the SDG report to read more. Lastly, and it's so important when we have data to really improve the access and to disseminate both the data and microdata. And this is a great example from Kyrgyzstan when they had really responded to the government needs, and then they have a dashboard for the SDG indicators and with report and a lot of examples, and then the government agencies can really find what they need for policy making, and also the general public find very helpful. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is really a great experience for me to work on. Thank you, Yongyi. It was frustrating at times, but I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Howie. Thank you for sharing the challenges and the opportunity brought by the COVID to the statistical and data community. And also, we want to use this report as advocacy to call for more investment in data. So our next speaker is my colleague Yu Xi. Yu Xi will provide some key findings from the SDG Progress Chart. Over to you, Yu Xi.
So, can you hear me?
I think we cannot hear you well. Can you speak a little more?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no better.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues. And it is my pleasure to present to you the Sustainable Development Goal Progress Chart 2021, which was prepared by the Statistics Division of UN DESA in collaboration with many international organizations based on data from national statistical systems. And it is published accompanied with the SDG Report 2021. So the Sustainable Development Goals Progress Chart 2021 present a snapshot of global and regional progress towards selected targets under the SDGs through a traffic light dashboard. The progress chart shows that the world was already off track in realizing the ambitions and fulfilling the commitments of 2030 agenda, even before the COVID-19. This progress chart provides two types of information: a trend assessment based on a baseline year of around 2015 or 2010 using traffic light color, and a level assessment based on the latest available data using a gauge meter with 1 bar indicating very far away from the target, and 5 means the target is already been achieved. Similar to last year, there are 4 colors to illustrate trend assessment. The red stands for deterioration, and orange indicates limited or no progress. In contrast, the yellow color stands for fair progress, but acceleration is needed, and the green indicates on track or substantial progress for the specific targets and the region. And the baseline year used for the trend assessment is 2015 for most indicators. If there are no sufficient empirical data around that time, a baseline year of around 2010 is used. For most indicators, the latest data used to assess the trend and the current level are from 2019 to 2020. For few indicators, the data go back to 2017. Therefore, this progress chart cannot fully review the impact of the COVID-19. The assessment is based on the most up-to-date data available. However, the full impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is not yet known. Some of the devastating impacts of the pandemics can be found in the SDG Report 2021. So here is the process to conduct this progress chart. Basically, there are 3 steps. The first step is calculating and categorizing the current level and trend based on the standard methodologies developed and agreed by the task team of experts from around 15 regional and international agencies on the progress chart last year. Due to some nature of the indicators, some agencies apply different methodologies. And after the initial calculation, the assessment results were sent to agencies for their review. The review process normally includes the methodology and the final results. There are 35 indicators selected under 17 goals to present the progress made in SDGs. And the final step is to update the technical notes. The technical note details methodologies applied in the progress chart. And each year, the technical note needs to be updated to reflect the updated year range and any changes applied to the calculation method. And as you will notice from this year's SDG progress chart, it is inundated with yellow, orange, or even red. As most of the latest data are based on 2020 and 2019, the pace of progress has been insufficient even before the pandemic for most goals. And for a few targets, there are deterioration observed, and some are resulted from the pandemic. For instance, the employment rates. And based on the progress chart, substantial acceleration is needed and should be concentrated on food security, malnutrition issues, health systems, gender equality, drinking water and sanitation services, structural inequalities, climate change, and the environment. So I would like to conclude my presentation, and for more information, you can visit our SDG Report website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yuxi. This progress chart is also going to be available in all the 6 UN language. So just please visit our website for the update of the language version of the progress chart. Without further ado, maybe we just play a promotion video. It's about 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes. Please go ahead, Yuxi.
Can you hear the background music sound?
No.
Okay.
Can you just? Thank you for playing the video, Ishi. So this video is going to be made available on the UNSD website under the report website, probably later this week or early next week. I saw another just quick question on the source of the video. The video is based on the key finding from the report. So the source, a lot of this information is coming from the custodian agencies using the latest data. I think our last speaker is my colleague Paul Pacheco. I think because of the report, we want to make the report really concise and short and easy to digest for general public. We only have a selective indicator, probably 100 indicator, but we received more inputs and in detailed information about each indicator from the custodian agency. So therefore, we also going to launch an extended platform. So maybe Paul will tell us a little about detail of the extended platform. Over to you, Paul.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Yongyi. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. Like Yongyi said, my name is Paul Pacheco. I work with Yongyi and the rest, and Heather and Yusi in the SDG monitoring section. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tough to follow that very nice video. Congratulations to Yusi, who worked really hard on that. And also apologies for not being able to turn on my camera. I'm joining by mobile, and I know someone said it'd be nice to see faces to the names that they've been emailing, but hopefully you can still see my favorite profile photo instead of my initials, PP. But anyway, just a few minutes to talk about the extended report. I'm not going to be sharing any key findings or anything, but just a little bit of more about what it is. So this is something that new for this year that our team is putting together for this reporting year. It should be ready and posted on our webpage sometime next week. As what we are calling it suggests, it's the extended report will be like an extension of the glossary report that we launched last week, and that's what Yongyi said. The reason we are doing this extended report is that there are a lot more stories and key messages out there based on the data from the SDG indicators from the custodian agencies. And not only is there limited space in the glossary report, there's also limited resources and staff to work on it in such a short amount of time. So this extended platform, this extended report will allow all storylines and messages submitted by the custodian agencies of the indicators to be shared with the public, all from one location. We are of course extremely proud of the glossary report. It's we think it really highlights all the key messages, and it's very, very beautiful. But what's good about the extended report is that there's space. The storylines can have much more higher word count. Some of the storylines can have 2 or 3 charts that accompany it. It also includes some additional resources that the custodian agency provided that sometimes links to other resources, either their own publications, their own reports, and it also has space for progress analysis, because some of the progress analysis didn't also make it to the progress chart. But of course, the bad thing is that unlike the glossary report and the progress chart, this won't get translated. It will only be available in English. But I mean, I think that's it. I just wanted to mention what the extended report will be, and hope you get to read it sometime next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And I just want to say there's a series of output from for the SDG Report 2021. We also just have the newly updated the database. So if you want to look in for detailed data for individual countries or regions, and you can come to download the data from the database. And we also probably in coming soon, the database is going to be revamped and will be more user friendly. And in like I think in a couple of weeks, and you will see the new face of the database. I think that's all the presentation from us. So we will, if you have any questions for us, just please feel free to ask, or you can type it in the chat. So from the chat, raise your hand. Also, I can see you. From the chat, I already see some questions. Let me just read it. I think there's a question from Rosina. You see how many countries are represented in those global charts?
Sure, thank you. So basically, as you can see from the SDG Progress Chart, so it is done at the regional and global level, and it is based on the latest available data provided by custodian agencies. So the number of countries represented in each region is really depending on how the regional aggregation being calculated, and also depending on the nature of each indicator. And for example, we have some indicator which is only on the global level, and depending on the nature of the indicator, agencies have its own calculation methodology to do the aggregation.
Thank you, Yishi. I just want to add, so basically for both the report and the progress chart, we mainly focus on the global and the regional trends, and we will not cover any progress for countries, so which you can find the detailed information in the database. Any other questions? So feel free to talk if you want. I think there's a question on, is it possible to find a country abstract sheet? I think yes, we just haven't done so. So each year we also have called SDG country. Let me just look at it, or it's not snapshot. I think it's called SDG country profiles. It's called country profile. So we will update the country profile based on the latest data soon. And so where you can find the kind of snapshot of the country's progress in terms of the SDG for each goals, where the data is available. I see a hand raised. Just please go ahead. From Ceci.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much, colleagues, and congratulations for the great work. I'm Cecilia Tinonin from UN Women Asia and Pacific Statistics team. So I have one methodological question, which is related to the mode of data collection during COVID-19. We know that many NSOs switched to CATI. So I was wondering how the mode effect was tackled in the analysis. And then I noticed, obviously, that all presentation point out to a very alarming situation, both at the global and regional level. So I was kind of like thinking, what are the positive key messages, if any, that we can draw from this assessment, especially if there are any lessons learned in terms of data uses and evidence-based policymaking. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Maybe I would like to invite my colleague Howie to talk about the first question, because she's a survey expert on this in this area.
not expert in this area. Thank you, Cecilia, for the question. Yes, many countries changed their mode effect, but that's not the only thing they've changed. They have to shorten the questionnaire because for telephone interview, it has to be a lot shorter than the face-to-face. So usually the results from the surveys during COVID is an outcome of multiple impacts. The mode effect, the questionnaire design effect, and the COVID effect. So some countries who have good administrative data like Korea, they actually compared their results with administrative data, and then it was actually not so bad. It was pretty comparable. The mode effect was not significant, and we have actually they wrote an article about it, and it's published on their website. I'll be happy to provide. But many were just really just recently start to think, how do they actually systematically assess the mode effect? Because it's a really multiple impact, multiple factors intertwined together. It's really hard to tell which is which. So some have started to do experiment to really assess the mode effect. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Yeah, I think this your second part is the question, and yes, so the report finding is pretty alarming, but we also see some positive in terms of policy implementation, in terms of the quick response from the government and the whole society. For example, I think the report we didn't show in the presentation. The report find there's a 1,600 short-term social protection was implemented by the government to respond to the pandemic, and there's also a lot of the policy implementation and to respond on different areas. So there's some positive funding. So we just want to use this key finding and the data to provide some guidance for policymaking in their Build Back Better process. Let me look at the other question. So from Holly. Hi, Holly. It's nice to see you here. Could you speak about available disaggregation of SDG indicators? This is a very good question. So we're still facing the challenging about. Oh, you want to talk about? Yeah, just maybe elaborate more, Holly. I see your hands is
No,
raised.
sorry, I was just waving back at you to say hello. Sorry, you go ahead, Yongyi.
No, it's so good to hear you. And it's still a big challenging, and in terms of data disaggregation, we have some improvement in our database in terms of the disaggregate level of the data. And however, I think the still a lot of the population group is not covered by the data collection, and the interagency and the expert group on SDG indicators, and working together with a lot of other agencies and partners, and try to address issue and provide a methodology guidance and capacity building. So last year, I think early this year, we had some publication on like a data disaggregation. I also compiled a good resource from all the agency and partners on available resources on data disaggregation. And the group also working on some methodology issues, such as the small area estimation for data disaggregation. But it's still big challenging and to get the needed data to monitor the vulnerable population. And so I check the next questions. Let me see if I miss any. I think there's a question about where we can find the successful SDG implementation done by students. I don't know. There's a one initiative carried out by DESA colleagues on the good practice on SDG implementation. I'm not sure if they have any good success story from students. Maybe Yuxi was involved a little bit in that process. So maybe Yuxi, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, thanks, Yi. I think most of the good practice of SDG implementation consolidated or compiled by our DESA colleagues are mainly from NGOs and government. And so if you are interested, I can also post their link to in our chat box. But I don't think there are any implementation done by students.
Yeah, thank you, Yuxi. This probably we don't know the right answer and provide the resource to you. Maybe we'll have to check with other DESA our colleagues in public social policy and also in the sustainable development division may know more about this information. I see a question from Mamadou. He said, I'm the data officer of the resident coordinator officer in my country, but I see the data online at the same times as the general public. Please, who is the person enter country SDG data to the UN stat portal? We don't collect the data directly from the country. The data is collected by the custodian agency through the established mechanism and their mandate, and because the data collected from countries need to be validated and ensure they're international comparable. So each custodian agency collects the data from the country, and then they send this data to the UN Statistical Division to upload to the global SDG database. And so we have a short note to the reader at the end of the report, explain a little bit the process. But on our website, on the database website, there's probably more detailed information on this. So I see another question from Hari. Were there any SDG indicator which were sourced by any of these new modes from any country and used in the report? I don't think we know the answer, because when we get the data from the custodian agency, the data is already processed. We have a nature of the data, but it doesn't indicate what mode of survey that the data are collected. So this detailed information probably we have to reach out to the custodian agency who own the data. And there's another question from D'Angelo, say how the report is linked to SDG Progress Report in the VNR. This is a global SDG report based on the global indicator framework, and also we focus on the progress at global and regional level. Of the VNRs as a country adapt the SDGs and the 2030 agenda to their national circumstance, and uses the national SDG indicators. And so in the VNR, the country report in detail how their progress for their country. So this is basically a different level of reporting, and if to form a more comprehensive overview of how the SDG implemented at country, regional, and global level. So I don't know if I missed any questions, so usually maybe if you can help. And if you have other further questions, just please maybe speak up or raise your hand. Okay, I say I don't see any further question. So I would like to thank you all your participation, and also thank you for my colleagues who contribute to this webinar. So if you need any more information, and just please contact us, and also visit our website for the report and other output related to the 2020 SDG progress. Thank you very much. Have a great day and a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Paul.
you.
Good driving.
Thank you.